Hey everyone, welcome to this daily Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for November 23rd to the 24th of 2016. I'm Athen, and this channel is about using the actual constellations in the sky known as Sidereal Astrology. If you are new, be sure to check out the link down below because the signs are different. All right, so happy Thanksgiving for those of you in the States. I'm going to be taking the day off, which means we're going to do 2 days in this one video. So let's go ahead and have a look here. On Wednesday and Thursday, the moon will be in Virgo, emphasizing the self-discipline, as I always talk about with Virgo, focusing on what we do have control over in our lives, which is essentially ourselves, and it's our routine, it's our self-improvement, our personal growth. So it does make it a really good day for this personal development. Makes it a really good day for taking care of things, organizing things in our life, and developing that self-discipline there. Now, as we approach the weekend, I do want to say that we are going to be going into the balsamic phase of the lunar cycle, which is the ending of the lunar cycle, which is a bit more about maybe getting some rest and relaxation, maybe doing some reflection, and just all in all being more receptive in our life. Right, and spiritual activities and those types of things can go well. It's still a bit early with that. We'll still be in the third quarter phase on Wednesday, so still a time this middle part of the week to initiate some steps, particularly with whatever it is we've been thinking about or working on or cultivating these past couple weeks. But yes, as we get into the weekend, a bit more of that receptive side. So with the moon in Virgo, which is about that refinement of life, the sun will be shifting into Scorpio more and more so. So our focus is shifting towards the deeper side to things and what really matters. And so this is where it's really good time to get vulnerable, as I have been saying, vulnerable with life, vulnerable with ourselves and our relationships. And in that way, facing fears, facing inhibitions, breaking old patterns, but really just connecting to what matters most and stripping away the layers, and as we get into that core of what truly matters, of course, that's a very beautiful thing. And that's what Scorpio shows us, is how to cultivate this beauty, this true connection to life. So that's the sun. We do have a very important aspect on Wednesday. We do have Mercury conjoining up to Saturn. And so on this day in particular, there is a new beginning having to do with discipline. And so this is, I think, disciplining our minds, disciplining our communications, and disciplining our routine. This is a cyclical thing, happens about once a year. And what's interesting about this one is that both planets are shifting into a fucus during that conjunction. So it is signifying that things are going into a new step, which is about healing collectively. I think it's healing the mind, healing communication, our perspective of it itself, things like that, through communication even. And also healing through our routine and our work, things like that. And so what I mean by healing is particularly accepting. At least that's the step. That's how we get to the healing side of things. If you ask any counselor or spiritual teacher or whatever, they say the first step is acceptance. We have to be aware of, these deeper things and inhibitions and, again, fears and things that are preventing us from being refreshed, being rejuvenated. And that's really what happens through a fucus, through this transformation process, as we become more aware of the fears, as we learn to accept them. It's very refreshing, very rejuvenating, and very healing. So that's what's going on with our minds collectively. So what's going on through and with the communication and also the routine. Again, with Virgo, I think it's an excellent couple days to work on that personal growth, personal development. But with those intellectual, mental things, being patient here, right? Utilizing the mind even too, in a way with presence, in the sense that we are using our minds and our minds aren't dominating or controlling us, which can sometimes be the case if we get too identified with the ego, with the mind, right? So being aware of the mind, using the mind as a tool, using it towards something disciplined, something right, something balanced, in the grounded sense, which is Saturn, with that discipline. It's really about mastery with Saturn, mastering the mind, mastering communication, mastering the routine. But it comes from not identifying with it, right? And being aware of it and accepting it in a way that it no longer has control over us. We are wielding it. We are wielding the mind. And that's what a fucus is all about. It's the serpent bearer, wielding the serpent. The serpent is the mind. Serpent is the ego. At least that's what it represents symbolically. So wielding it. And I think that's a great way of working with this. And with that discipline, we can see some very fruitful things in the long term with this. And I think just all in all, a greater mastery collectively over these intellectual and communicative aspects of life. So that's how I would emphasize the day on Thursday or on Wednesday. This is when we start to get into the balsamic phase with the moon sextiling up to the sun. So as we get into Thursday, Thanksgiving in the States, there is this, again, shift into the more receptive side of things. And we have a very important aspect, in fact, we'll probably feel both days. And this is Jupiter squaring up to Pluto. Very collectively significant. This is two very outer planets in an aspect, which usually means something, collectively transforming in the collective consciousness. So first of all, Jupiter square Pluto. This is a Jupiter who's already been in Virgo, helping us see that yes, there are future possibilities, but they do require work. They do require a bit of, again, that personal growth, personal development, working on the details of things, and even working on the details of those inspirations or those possibilities. So it's an earth sign. It's about taking it slow. It's about improving things. Now, with the square from Pluto, what's happening is I think there is a change happening to our belief systems collectively. This is a change to expand. This is a change to see potentials, but it will require going deep. And that's a very good way of working with it, as it always is with Pluto. It might be uncomfortable depth, with the square. But again, especially with all this energy going into Scorpio and Ophiuchus, it is requiring this time of accepting these fears, of being aware, first of all, being aware of the fears, and then accepting the fears. And what happens when we, see fears that are preventing us from expanding our horizons? What happens when we finally say, you know what? I'm not going to allow these fears to get in the way. I'm not going to be ruled by them, right? I'm not going to live my life based on fear. And when we get to the point where we don't care, what the outcome might be, in other words, we're no longer afraid, a tremendous thing happens, a tremendous transformation. And that's what I think is happening collectively, is this this transformation of our belief systems, transformation of what's possible in life by stripping away the fears, by stripping away the inhibitions, the things preventing us, and freeing ourselves up by saying, look, I don't care what happens. Whatever the result might be, it will be. And that frees us up. And then as a result, we really do see the change that is needed. And then that's when we can really take the steps, take the actions, take the initiation towards making change. So that's a very good way of working with the square. I think the deeper we're willing to go, the better. I think still thinking big, seeing possibilities and potentials, but, with the follow through, which means doing the work, which is the square, stripping away the fears. The inner work is mostly what this is all about. And so as a result, yes, positive changes to those possibilities, to those potentials, positive changes with our personal growth, which is also Virgo. And again, those belief systems, which has already been changing, which has been Pluto in Sagittarius. And I also want to say too, it does work the other way. Jupiter squaring up to Pluto can perhaps intensify things because Jupiter expands, right? And Pluto is about deep things. And so sometimes there can be a bit of intensity. There can be a lot of deep perspectives or something like that. So again, the key here is to be aware of the ego, to be aware of the self that is afraid, that does want things to be controlled, does want things to be a certain way because of the fear, and being aware of it and accepting it. Accepting that it's there, but not identifying with it. It's not us. And as a result, very transformational, very freeing there. All right, so that's the square, very important. Again, both days. And as we get into Friday, Venus is going to go over Pluto, in fact, in Sagittarius. So there's a transformation with our values, as there has been when Venus went over the galactic center. Now she's going over Pluto. Change to our values, change to our relationships, what we enjoy, the things we enjoy in others. All this is going through this what will be this refreshing rejuvenation as a result. But going into tomorrow, I think a willingness to examine our values. Again, willingness to strip away any fears and what comes from fear, such as the control and the, wanting things to be a certain way, and the attachment. And then as a result, going into the weekend, yes, transformed relationships, transformed values as a result. But I'll talk more about that over the weekend These 2 days, I think the biggest emphasis is on on Wednesday, with Mercury conjoining Saturn, which is this new beginning about discipline. Okay, disciplining, mastery over the mind, mastery over the communication process, so that it's us, the centered us, that is making the decisions, calling the shots. And as a result, there can be some very good productive things coming from this. Could be a very productive day, in fact. And even with the routine, going back to all of this Virgo, getting the routine in order, taking that seriously, health, diet, regimens, or maybe it's the work, the day-to-day work. And then as we get into Thursday, this will be the square from Jupiter exact, which is about changing those belief systems. Okay, changing to, anything that is preventing us from seeing what's possible, seeing those potentials, but what's preventing us more than likely here is the fears, is the inhibitions, is these deeper things. And I think examining that, sometimes with Jupiter just comes across as easy. Some of us, we might just feel like, oh, it's just another day or something like that. Very easy, or we're just feeling quite expansive, but that might be missing the point. The point with the square here is to dive deep, is to see if there's any fears, any inhibitions that are preventing us from making the changes that we want to see in our lives. All right, so I hope you guys have a fantastic 2 days. Again, happy Thanksgiving for those of you in the States, and I'll see you all this weekend for the weekend report. Take care.